Welcome back to this podcast episode, ladies and gentlemen. The spirit of the open source community has sparked some controversy in recent days and weeks. Both Red Hat and SUSE, two renowned companies in the field of open source, are currently in the focus of discussion. While Red Hat has come under fire for its change in access to RHEL upgrades, SUSE is making news with a new statement. In this podcast, we take a closer look at the controversial development at both companies and their potential impact of the open source sector. Does Red Hat violate the spirit of open source? Red Hat has been criticized for allegedly violating the spirit of the open source community. RHEL clones, Alma and Rocky, which were previously indirectly supported by RHEL, are facing some challenges. Red Hat curtailed support for these projects and withdrew key repositories. While CentOS is the upstream project for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, shortened RHEL, and the Red Hat customers, Red Hat has also made some adjustments to CentOS packages for RHEL or provides security updates for RHEL and this way for CentOS as an upstream. These packages end up in a repository to which the clones should no longer have access in future. This is considered a violation of the open source principles of collaboration, open sharing, and support. The open source community is based on the concept of shared engagement and collaboration, where all participants contribute to improve the code and drive the project forward. When companies like Red Hat appear to deviate from these values and provide less support for certain projects, it can shake confidence in the dedication to open source spirit. Such controversies can cause division within the community and affect the company's reputation as an open source provider. RHEL is an enterprise distro developed and maintained by Red Hat. The work of the developers is rewarded through sold support contracts. Customers receive comprehensive support with short response times through these support contracts depending on the level. The clones like Rocky and Alma have created binary clones of RHEL, arguably bringing little in return to Red Hat themselves in their opinion. There were also cases of customers using the free clones and contacting Red Hat if they had problems with them. There was an opinion to convert a clone to a RHEL instance and eventually purchase a license for support, but in the end, many customers using the clones benefited fully from RHEL development but were not rewarded for the work. Red Hat is the company that contributes to the most FOSS projects by financially supporting many projects or by employing paid developers. However, this commitment has to be financed. Without selling support contracts, the cost for development and so on cannot be converted. Red Hat seems to have noticed that many companies use the RHEL clones free for charge for the business. The clones benefits from all advantages of RHEL but gave nothing back to RHEL. Such an extensive free service cannot be offered permanently in this way. No business works this way. If Red Hat goes bust, a great many FOSS projects will soon follow. It is important to empathize that RHEL is aimed at corporate customers. We're not talking about small basement services here, but about a solution intended for large enterprise customers. RHEL is not a distro for private use. Fedora from the same company is available for this purpose, and CentOS as a server distro is still available free of charge for servers. SUSE focuses on a new strategy. Based on the news about Red Hat, SUSE has announced it will continue to stand by open source values. The company has announced that it will increase its open source activities and focus on open source principles. SUSE plans to further strengthen its position as one of the pioneers in the open source sector by creating an open dialogue with developers and users. SUSE recognizes that success in the open source space depends heavily on collaboration and exchange with the community. By encouraging dialogue with developers and users and providing an open platform for ideas and innovation, SUSE is demonstrating its commitment to the core values of open source spirit. This move has been widely welcomed and is seen as an encouraging development that can reinforce confidence in SUSE as a leader in the open source space. SUSE offers some enterprise solutions like SUSE Linux Enterprise. Depending on this, SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, short SLES, and SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop, short SLED, are available. At no time has SUSE offered or allowed SLES clones. However, SUSE has sought collaboration with the community and made OpenSUSE Leap binary compatible with the SLE base, SLED to be precise. With OpenSUSE Leap, you have a comparable product to SLED but not SLES. Nevertheless, this work did not lead to the establishment of Leap or SLE binary clones offering a relabeled SLE or Leap under their own name. The direction is clear. Those who want it for free are offered free solutions. OpenSUSE Leap, which can be officially converted to a SLED with a license. If you want more, for instance a server for business, you have to buy a license for SLES. In return, you get first-class enterprise support from SUSE. This is how the business model works. Let's talk about the impact for the open source sector. The controversial developments at Red Hat and SUSE raise important questions about the spirit of the open source community. The open source community has been based on the principles of collaboration, open sharing, and support. If companies like Red Hat are perceived to be deviating from these values, it could shake the community confidence. The impact of such controversies on the open source sector could be manifold. On the one hand, there is a risk of weakening trust in companies like Red Hat, which could lead to a decrease in community support and cooperation. On the other hand, strengthening SUSE's community-related activities could help to increase trust in the company and the open source sector as a whole. However, it's important to note that the open source sector continues to be supported by a wide range of companies and projects. The diversity of actors and community participation are fundamental features of the open source model. Controversies such as these can help raise awareness of the importance of the open source spirit and lead to discussions on how companies can rethink their strategies and renew their commitment to the community. What's the conclusion? Recent developments at Red Hat and SUSE raise important questions about the spirit of open source community. While Red Hat is facing criticism for its approach, SUSE is praised for reinforcing open source values. It remains to be seen how these developments will affect the open source sector. In fact, Red Hat's move is clearly understandable economically. For besides Rocky and Alma, there is another clone offered by a large company, Oracle Linux. Fedora and CentOS are still available free of charge. Those with smaller environments can continue to use RHEL with free licenses. Here the limit has been raised to 240 instances. A company that uses more than 240 servers or instances should be able to secure them with support. With its action, Red Hat has positioned itself quite similar to SUSE in fact. There is still free options for individuals and semi-professionals as well as for developers. Anyone who runs a larger company and uses enterprise Linux server solutions should also put up the corresponding money and honor the work on the first-class enterprise distributions. In return, there is also support. It is clear, however, that the values of collaboration, open exchange and support are of great importance in the open source sector and that companies that remain true on these values can win the trust of the community. Continued discussions and reflections on the open source spirit will help drive development and innovations in the sector. All of this, of course, detached from the fact that the FOSS community will certainly not contribute greatly to the profit and success of SUSE and Red Hat because at the end of the day, that is ensured by sold support contracts. So the community undoubtedly represents a very important moral value, but in practice and in the company, this value cannot be monetized and therefore it is impossible to pay the numerous developers for their work. The community must also say goodbye to the credo that everything must always be free. It doesn't have to. It may be sold, and here a distinction should be made between the needs of a company and those of private individuals. That was today's podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please feel free to leave a channel subscription, press the thumbs up button and hit the bell. Thanks for your kind attention, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.